Hey, Antonio, tell me what you've learned this week, right? But he would go on to say, the only advantage we have today over yesterday is what we've learned, because otherwise we're just a day closer to dead.
Hey everyone, it's Jenn Foster here with the Elite Expert Insider Podcast, and today we have an amazing guest for you. He is a award-winning author, Antonio Garrido, and he has written My Daily Leadership, a powerful roadmap for leadership success. And he is the founder and president of the Leadership Development Organization with a mission to inspire 1 million of the world's best leaders to reach their full potential. So welcome, Antonio. How are you today?
Hello, Jen. I'm very well, thank you. I'm very well. Thank you for the invitation. I'm a big fan of the channel. I was smiling because a million sounds rather grand, doesn't it? But then there's, inspire and influence versus work with, perhaps, which probably sounds definitely too grand. But things like this, if we can inspire a few people along the way, like today, I don't know what your reach is, get a few more thousand, pushing that number up. So yeah, a million. It sounds like a good number. I don't know whether we'll ever get there, and I don't know how to measure it. But anyway, there you are. That's our aim, at any rate.
I like it. Well, let's first define what is a high performance leader because I think, if that's who you're coaching, some people that are listening to this might be like, well, I'm not a high performance leader. So what makes a high performance leader or how can someone become a high performance leader?
Okay, well, that's an interesting question. I believe and absolutely know that everybody has the potential to be a high performance leader, right?
Yeah.
And so, it's not that the leadership gene was kind of indelibly stamped on some people's DNA and not others. And if you were so fortunate that God stamped that on your DNA, you were going to be a leader, and if not, right? So everybody has the potential to be a tremendous high performance leader. I'll come back to that just in 1 second. In the same way that anybody, if they decide they want to be a pilot, one imagines could be a pilot, and if they decided they wanted to be a baker, could be a baker, right? The thing about leadership, however, is there isn't really what you might call a standard, right? So a million years ago, when I first came out of university, because I'm fairly ancient, I was an architect. And we knew that for me to call myself a chartered architect, I had to pass certain degrees and qualifications in order to claim that title, to claim that position. But that doesn't really exist for leaders, which is, more's the pity, really, because
Mhm.
anybody can start a business and then therefore lead the business. The question is whether they do it well or whether they do it poorly. One of the first questions that we ask our clients when we first engage with them, which sounds like a rather odd question, but perhaps the more your audience thinks about it, the more will be revealed. But so the question is, well, we ask them, what kind of a leader do you want to be? So we said, do you want to be an okay leader? Do you want to be a good leader? Do you want to be an above average leader? Do you want to be a world-class leader, best in class? What kind of leader do you want to be?
Not
And
average, right? Not average.
well, you would be staggered. You would be staggered how many say, no, yeah, a good leader. And I think, well, hold on. We also gave you the option of best in class and world class. And it feels that you're setting your aims too low, right? If you aspire to be good, then I guess it's Henry Ford, whether you think you can or you can't, you're right. So, how good a leader do you want to be? So back to answering your question, you know, to steal mercilessly from another great, not that I'm great, but from a great leadership uh, development professional, gosh, I've forgotten his name now, Marshall Goldsmith. What got you here won't get you there, right? So it's true that a leader's job is to future-proof themselves, their people, and their business. So their job is to make sure that the business continues to survive and thrive into the future, not just today. So make some decisions about the leader that you want to be. Make some decisions about the strength of the company, not only today, but tomorrow and into the future. Make some decisions about the culture of the organization that you want to run. Make some decisions about whether or not I used to have a boss. So I have been incredibly fortunate, Jen, and it's much more by luck than by judgment. I have worked for, I would say, 4 world-class leaders, certainly 6 best-in-class leaders, right? I have just back, and as I say, I'm fairly ancient, and back in the day when, it was, leadership wasn't a thing as it is now. You couldn't really be coached, and that's how ancient. I fell off my dinosaur on my way to work, obviously. So, and one of them would say to me, and not just to me, but to the whole of the organization, often, whenever we, if ever I bumped into him in the corridor in a meeting, he would say, and it's fairly grisly, and it's his expression, not mine, but I'll just share it for what it's worth. He would say, "Hey, Antonio, tell me what you've learned this week," right? But he would go on to say, "The only advantage we have today over yesterday is what we've learned, because otherwise we're just a day closer to death." Now, I told you it was grisly, but the point is that is the only advantage we have today over yesterday is what we've learned. So he would constantly be asking people, where have you failed this week? And if somebody says, well, they haven't failed this week, he would be very downtrodden and dissolute. He would say, well, then that's a week wasted, because if you haven't failed at anything, then you haven't been trying hard enough. The racing car driver Mario Andretti, that's how old I am on my references, right?
I've heard of him before.
Yeah, he would say, if you're not terrified going through the corners, you're not going fast enough, right? And so, and the best way to learn how to not fall off a bike, what do you think is the best way to learn how to not fall off a bike? What do you think?
Probably keep falling down and getting back up, so then you do it, right?
The only way to learn how to not fall off a bike is to fall off a bike, right? So because you can't learn how to not fall off a bike by watching a YouTube video, reading a book, and having somebody explain to you the dynamics and physics of how bicycles work. It's the way you learn to walk, talk, read, write, use a fork, and tie your shoelaces. So we would have this conversation with leaders by saying, okay, so what kind of leader do you want to be? Do you want to be an exceptional leader? Do you want to future-proof yourself, your people, and your organization? Do you want to set up a culture of learning? Do you want your people to be able to fail fast and learn and move? Is that what you want? Now, 99 times out of 100, they say yes, but you'd be surprised. Sometimes they say, well, that seems a bit tricky, right? And they're just like, well, I mean, you don't have to do it if you don't want to do it. So to answer your question, everybody has the potential. What they need to do is make a decision, right? So I'll give you another example, right? A really good example. And if there's anybody listening that wants to play this game, it's a really interesting game to play. So let's imagine somebody has a small organization and there are 10 people in the business. Right? So I'll talk to the CEO of an organization. And so just work with these numbers in accordance with the size of the organization that you have. So I'll say to the CEO, how many people work here? And I'm always tempted that somebody asked the Pope once how many people work at the Vatican, and he said about half. So I was expecting the CEO to say about half. So I'll say, how many people? Let's say he says, or she says, they say 100. I'll say, okay, well, the distribution bell chart, we've probably got 20% A players, we've probably got 60% B players, we've probably got 20% C players, right? Standard distribution. And then I say, okay, so if you have 100, then you've probably got 20 C players. Give me the name of one of your C players. And they'll go, George, quick as a flash. And I go, okay, give me another one. They'll go, so I'll have them mention 3 or 4 people. They'll go, George. And I said, well, tell me about George. How long has George been with you? George been with me 8 years and 9 months. How long has Mary been with you? 3 years. How long was, what was the other one? George. Tom, how long has Tom been with you? Yeah. 18 months. I'd say, okay. Well, tell me this. And remember, there are 20 of these George, Toms, and Marys. Tell me this, though. Did you hire them like that, or have you made them?
Right.
So, and then they always seem to, kind of flashes across their eyes. Because if the answer is we hired them like that, then there's a problem with their hiring processes and cultures. If they've made them like that, then the culture needs some work. if they don't know, right, that's even worse. My point is this, that, you claim to want to have a world-class organization, but you encourage what you tolerate. And we have all of these players who've been with you for goodness knows how long. You don't know whether you've hired them like that or made them like that, but you certainly haven't done much about, increasing the depth and breadth of bench strength, and do something about the C players, accept change or terminate, develop the B players, develop the A players. The best surefire way to cheese off your A players is to tolerate nonsense from your C players, right? And so we use lots of these kind of, just take a real good, strong, hard look in the mirror, these very difficult conversations, only to the extent that, not to embarrass anybody, but just for them to make a very determined decision. Okay, this is enough, right? We are going to fix it. It can be fixed. Let's do it in an organized and methodical and structured way. Let's improve myself, my people, and my business in that order. To answer your question, which was a great question, anyone can be an exceptional leader, but first they have to make that determination within themselves. That's what they're going to do, because otherwise, if you always do, you've always done, you'll always get what you've always got. It makes sense,
right? Well, it's like knowing that you want to be great and not to say I want to be good, right? And to that thought, you talk about a lot of other blind spots in your book, and that's one of the blind spots, I think, as a business leader, is not acknowledging that sometimes you have to start with yourself as a leader. And it's not that the C players are doing C average work, it's that you're not leading them to be A.
You're not doing anything about them. And that's the problem with blind spots, that we all know that we have them, but we don't know what they are. And what, in my experience, never happens. I don't know how many individuals work at your place, Jen. Now, every time someone asks you that, I'm going to go, about half. So every time.
Yeah, about half. It's about right.
Yeah. Unlikely. Well, it's never happened to me at any rate. And I've run companies with 17,000 people, right? What thought 60 size organizations, and no one has ever come to my office and knocked on my door and say, "Hey boss, have you got 5 minutes?" And I go, "Yeah, sure, sit down. What's going on?" No one has ever come to me, Jen, and says, "Well, Antonio, I've been watching your performance over the last 6 months or so, and I just wanted to share with you that I think you're dreadful in every single regard, right? I think you're the worst leader I've ever known." That's never happened, because, and inviting it is like asking turkeys to vote for Thanksgiving. They tend not to want to. So,
right.
so who's going to tell you? Because nobody's going to tell. Certainly not anybody whose future you hold in their hand and you decide who gets the good car park spaces, right? You check every day. So no, it's hard to tell somebody they have an ugly baby. And I did a talk just before COVID hit in Miami for about 400 leaders. And I asked, by a show of hands, who here, and they were all leaders, different size organizations, small and large, and all over the place. And I asked, who here has no leadership blind spots? And thankfully, there was enough self-awareness in the room for nobody to put their hands up. In other words, everybody recognized that they do have blind spots. Terrific, says that. Shows tremendous self-awareness. Okay, well, if everyone can just take 5 seconds, just 5 minutes, and write down what your own particular blind spots are, that'd be very useful. Well, nobody knows what they are because they're blind spots. If they knew what they were, then they wouldn't be. So it's this really tricky position where no one's telling you. You don't know what they are. And these pinch points, speed bumps, roadblocks are standing in your way. So what you do, you have to figure out, you have to do assessment, you have to get a coach, you have to do all of these kind of things. You got to figure out what they are, because otherwise, then try as you might, you are only going to get so far. And if, again, you want to be world-class, if you want to be best in class, if you want to be best in market, knowing how you're, so often we'll talk to leaders and they'll constantly talk about how they're constantly firefighting. And we know, we're talking to them and we know who the arsonist is, right? It's them, right? They all, I'm too busy mopping up the floor to turn off the faucet conversation, right? I mean, it's good, it's terrible. It's good that it keeps our organization in business, but it's sad. But at the same time, there is nothing more gratifying, and there is nothing more splendid in this world. Well, okay, raising children and having a happy marriage and happy family. That's number one. Number two is helping businesses succeed. We have a client of ours who has 38,000 employees, and the CEO there knows that, you know, that organization is responsible for 38,000 families. And what a tremendous honor it is to be able to help organizations succeed
Right.
So, so
I would assume a leader of that size of company would know, like, I think a lot of times as small business owners, and we say we're leaders of our company, but we're the ones that are putting out the fires all the time instead of leading the people who we've appointed to do the job to put out the fires. Like, I think there's a few people who talk about, you know, if you're on vacation or even if you're just like hanging out and you turn your phone on airplane mode for a couple hours or even a day, you would think, oh, well, there's going to be so many problems in my business. What am I going to do? Well, if your people couldn't reach you, I think they'll just figure out how to put out the fire. And then those people will be, you know, like if you lead them to take action instead of you just doing it all for them all the time. I think that's a blind spot that a lot of people have in their businesses.
100%. And probably by volume, I probably 50 or 60% of our business is small business owners, right? The small solopreneur, entrepreneur, you know, right from kind of like the smaller scale, right up to the very big. But the issues are exactly the same, right? It's not because the big company, they have new and special and different issues. It's exactly the same issues from the very, very big to the very, it's like being a parent, right? It's, parents of boys, parents of girls, parents of twins and triplets, the issue is the same. But it's just the impact. If you've got triplets and you do something good,
it's way harder.
good things happen. If you've got triplets and do something bad, 3 bad things happen. So yes, the issues are the same. Why? Because it's people. It's people and systems and processes and customers, and the principles are exactly the same. It's just slightly more complex. But we find helping the smaller, you know, business even more gratifying because it's more personal somehow. It's more of a, you know, they're trying to leave a legacy for their children and their children. And they're so fearful of making the wrong decision, very often make no decision. So we talk a lot in the book about what's your biggest resource. And say money, no; time, no; people, no. It's action bias. Just so many small leaders, they go ready, fire, aim. That's not the other end of the scale is they go ready, aim,
right? No action.
Maybe fire, and you know, you can't blow an uncertain trumpet. So we help them just make a decision, make it fast, course correct along the way, even if it's an imperfect. Just go, do something and course correct. And pilots
just take action.
Just action bias. Just
I like that.
Magic and power all its own. Be brave. Be brave.
Yes. Let's wrap up by talking about leadership journaling. So you talk about that in your book. What is leadership journaling?
So look, I mean, as soon as you said that, half of your audience hit the snooze button, right? They just go, no, that's too much hard work. Well, that's where the self-awareness, these blind spots, this is where you uncover them yourself. And it's hard work, right? Growing and leading a business and a thriving business takes some effort, right? And it's like, do you have children, Jen? I don't know. I have 4.
I do. I have 3.
When you decided to become a parent, there was never a day, Jen, where you just went, when they were young, there was never, I don't know you very well, but I know for sure that there was never a day when you said to yourself, I can't be bothered feeding them today, or I can't be bothered changing their nappies, you know, diapers. I can't be bothered with any of that stuff today. So it's my birthday. I think I'll take the day off and just lock them in a cupboard, like Harry Potter under the stairs, right? In other words, baked into parenthood are these responsibilities that you have. There isn't a day that goes by where you don't brush your teeth, I'm sure. Every morning, how drunk you may be, how tired you may be, how disenchanted with your toothbrush you may be, you brush your teeth every day, every morning and come what may. Well, baked into leadership is the responsibility to improve yourself. It just is. So all I want to do, it's not a heavy lift. It's really easy. And just start. Again, make an imperfect start and course correct in the way. If all of the people who are listening will just do this for 21 days, and if the most remarkable thing doesn't happen, send me an email and I'll send you a check, right? Because what I want everybody to do, and it's the easiest start, at the end of every day, right? 5 minutes before you go and brush your teeth, right? Because you're going to brush your teeth, right? Just ask yourself this. Just look at your leadership report card for the day and say, well, how did I do? Remember, our goal is world class. And if our goal is world class and that's a star, then how did I do? And if it's B minus, fine, it's B minus, but then ask yourself this. So give yourself a leadership report card score for the day. And then just ask yourself this: what could I have done? Should I have done, or said, or not done? That would have made B minus a B plus. And just write that down. When I told this, maybe I could have spent 5 more minutes until that. When I thought about this, maybe I could have spent 5 more minutes and done it. Right? That's it. Give yourself a report card for the day. Say what you could have done to make that B minus a B plus. Do that for 21 days. Here's what will happen then. And that's called, because wisdom comes from evaluated experience, not from time served. What will happen within 21 days is you'll be in the moment, and situationally you'll get insight where you'll say, well, future Antonio, in 3 hours from now, when I'm scoring myself for the thing I'm talking about with Jeff right now, is going to be disappointed with me. So I'm going to say this instead, right? And when you think with a little bit of hindsight, it'll give you a little bit of insight, it'll give you a little bit of foresight, and then you'll start being you'll start developing that self-awareness, you'll start being a better leader, and it's a great start. And if you do that for 21 days, and if things don't get better, let me know, and we'll have a change. And if they do get better, then buy the book and give me a 5-star review on Amazon. I mean, who can say fair?
There you go. I love that. That's great. Well, thanks, Antonio, for being on the show. I think that all the entrepreneurs and people listening today, if they get your book and start doing leadership journaling and figuring out what their blind spots are, then they can become a better leader and become that high performance leader. Well, everyone, go and buy Antonio Garrido's book, My Daily Leadership, on Amazon or anywhere where you buy books. And of course, remember to subscribe and follow us wherever you listen to podcasts today. Talk to you later.
Hey, are you looking to increase your revenue, build credibility, and elevate your brand? This podcast is brought to you by Elite Online Publishing, an innovative publishing and full-spectrum marketing company. They will publish and market your book to make it a #1 bestseller. Becoming an author is the best way to market your business. So contact them at eliteonlinepublishing.com today. All of their authors become #1 bestsellers.